If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby. Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast. We are, of course, presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Most of you know that by now. 5 teams, 7 years. Although we get new listeners every week. We get new people watching and subscribing on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. If you type in NFL betting, NFL gambling on like Apple Podcasts or YouTube, we're always one of the first 2 or 3. Pretty cool what we've been able to build here, in large part thanks to my co-host, Steve Fezzik, at Fezzik Sports on social media. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. Highly encourage you, by the way, to follow us and subscribe on YouTube. It's free for those of you who don't know, but youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Looking to go over the 20K mark on my YouTube page there. As a reminder, you can also always get these bets in black and white on our vaunted spreadsheet from our Australian sensation, Sean Grady, a.k.a. Grades. Just make sure you're a Tuckheads member of patreon.com/RT Media. Might be especially important, actually, over the next 2 weeks as we get into all of the prop bets that Steve will make both today and next week, and tracking all of them. Shout outs to Jay Moore, Jeffrey Saltz, and George Thomas, 3 of our latest patrons. Patreon.com/RT Media. All right, Steve, always a fun episode. We'll recap Conference Championship weekend. Not a great one for us. And then we really need to dive in to where things are at with strategy-wise, with Super Bowl betting. You know, DraftKings had the prop bets up Sunday night. I mean, we'll get to it, but I felt like, I'll just start there, Steve. I felt like the props didn't used to come out till the week of the Super Bowl. And then in recent years, it was like midway the week before. Now, DraftKings, they had them up Sunday night already. They had Super Bowl prop bets up for the Chiefs and the Eagles. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So it used to be Thursday in Las Vegas, Westgate. Thursday night was a huge event because they would launch all of these props. Jay Cornegay came over from the Imperial Palace. He invented the idea of putting up hundreds of props at this tiny little book, the Imperial Palace. It's now the Link. And they would do more business than Caesar's Palace on the Super Bowl because everyone would go to the Imperial Palace and see all their cool props. So everyone started copying all their props, but they wouldn't come up till Thursday. And now it's a whole different world. I mean, I know the Westgate's still going to be, launching all their props Thursday, but it's not a big deal because, like you said, Sunday night DraftKings has already put up a whole batch of them. They'll keep putting up more.
It's awesome. It really is cool. I'm going to have a Tuck Spreads bet through DraftKings. I don't usually dive into the prop bet game. I probably should. I mean, you talked about it last week, Steve, and I know on the Fantasy Feast podcast, both tomorrow and next week, we're going to be talking a lot of prop bets. Eagle on the Fantasy Feast feels like I didn't say it. I don't think I said it on this show. I should have. The Josh Allen, I think his rushing attempts was set at like 6. I was sitting there thinking, are you kidding me? I mean, I don't know how many he ended up having, but he had like 4 quarterback sneaks at least. I mean, maybe you know off the top of your head, but there's some prop bets, Steve, where I just feel like the number is way off, and I can tell right away.
Yeah, the usage for Josh Allen the last 2 games, he's gotten around 10 carries in both games, despite the fact that they're handing it off to Cook over and over, but then they get in the red zone, and Josh Allen suddenly picks up 3 carries, by the goal line. So he went under yardage the last 2 playoff games, but over certainly in terms of number of carries.
So most of these props, Steve, are they based on regular season? Because even like I haven't looked yet, and we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but Patrick Mahomes' rush attempts for this game is 4.2. Well, wait a minute. Sometimes they have this sliding thing, which I don't really understand on DraftKings, but
You get to pick how many carries he has. You can ladder up and down on a lot of these.
yeah, that confuses me. But they're saying he averages 4.2. And I don't know if that's where the over/under is set, but he's going to rush more than 4 times in this game.
I think I saw 6.5 for him, and you're right, because Mahomes carries the ball more. Makes sense during the playoffs than during the regular season because he doesn't want to get hurt during the regular season, so he saves his carries for the most highly leveraged situations with the game on the line. This is part of the reason the Chiefs are so clutch, is that Mahomes, when the game is on the line, will absolutely tuck it and run on 3rd and 8, but he won't do it if the Chiefs are up 14. It's unnecessary.
All right, well, let's get into the championship weekend recap, and especially since the Bills are involved, we'll do the recap presented by Labatt Blue Light. Drink Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. All right, so we start with the Eagles and the Commanders. You and I both put 1 unit on the Commanders getting the 6 points. It ended up being a best bet. I also had the Eagles in a teaser with the Bills. The Eagles were laying 6. I thought they'd win the game, teased it down to 0. They just had to win it, and then teased the Bills up to plus 7.5. That was a 2-unit, 2-team teaser that hit for me. You had the A.J. Brown under 60.5 yards for 1 unit. We both had the Commanders. Here's how I looked at it, Steve. If they played 10 times, it felt like to me the Commanders, with the way the Eagles were playing, which was not that well offensively, and the way the Commanders were playing, which was red hot, felt like to me if they played 10 times, Commanders would win 2 or 3, and then I would say 3 or 4 that they would lose would be by 6 points or less. So I thought that was a plus EV bet. I felt good about it. When it was 14-12, I still felt good about it. You know, with 4 turnovers, losing the turnover battle 4-0, and then Jalen Hurts having his best game in 2 months, they really didn't give them, even if you let Jalen Hurts have the best game in 2 months, they didn't give themselves a chance with all those fumbles.
Yeah, and you got to give the Eagles some credit. By the way, I had never heard this. The Eagles, the emphasis on when a dude falls down and he's getting up, it makes a lot of sense. Come in there punching, right? I mean, because that's a more vulnerable ball carrier that's more distracted, getting his presence back up on the field, and he oftentimes only has one hand on the ball, and they took advantage of it. Hey, A.J. Brown, me bad. He looked 100%. So that was a poor wager on my part. I was banking on him not being healthy, and he was.
All right, quick question. Watching that game, would you do the Washington -6 again, or hell no?
Hell no. I'd bet the Eagles -6. The Eagles were the right side. The Eagles should have won by 10, and they got fortunate, and they won by a zillion.
Got it. Okay. And then, so that was we lost 1 unit on the best bet, but then and you lost it on the A.J. Brown prop. My teaser came through. Bills Chiefs. I went with you. I think he might have this messed up because you're the one that took the under. We both took the under on. I think grades. You didn't take the Commanders getting the 6.
I can't recall because I know that game, depending on where, initially I bet Washington and then I soured on them as the week went on. So I can't recall.
No, I don't. I think I wouldn't have taken the total unless you did. So I think that was actually our best bet. The under 47.5 in Bills Chiefs, man, it went way over, Steve. I guess I'm just not doing the under on Mahomes games or Bills Chiefs games. I mean, it went way over.
I'm gonna stop playing unders on any game. On any game, because 54% of NFL games went over, and it's just part of this, and we'll talk about this with the props. Teams understand now, fourth down, go for it. I mean, and that, think about it, 4th down and 2 for midfield. If you punt, that's great for the under, and smart teams don't punt anymore, and that's part of the reason we're seeing more scoring.
That's a good point. That's really changed it, hasn't it?
And we got to be careful with these props because, think about this, any 4th down props, which I haven't seen yet, there were 10 4th down conversions on Conference Championship Sunday. 10. I mean, there's some, in the past, there'd be games that didn't have any. So what happens when there's a whole lot of 4th down conversions? Well, there's fewer 3rd down conversions. Teams are like, hey, I got 2 downs to pick up my 3rd down. And there's fewer punts and there's fewer field goals when there's more 4th down conversions.
I really feel like they're changing the game. I mean, I think it's here to stay. I think teams are going to be more and more aggressive on these 4th downs and realizing the value that they're creating. And I do think it creates a lot of value on 3rd down. So at any rate, the game went way over. So I broke even for the week. Steve, you were down 2 units. So for the season, I'm up 14 units. You're up 11 and a half. We were 0-1 on our best bets. So now we are 72, 61, and 3 on our best bets, a 53% strike rate. Although I got an email, Steve. I want to get to this now. I got an email from someone saying, Ross, your strike rate is actually higher than that. You're actually closer to 55% because they said if you've got 72 right out of 136, right? So I asked Grades about it, about the strike rate for the best bets. He said it's a tricky one. There's not really a consensus on the exact way to deal with pushes when calculating strike rates, as unit totals are ultimately what matters. Some people say they shouldn't be included. Others say you still lay it as a bet and risked bankroll, so it should be. So if the pushes are included, our strike rate is 52.9%. If the pushes are no action, our strike rate is 54.1%. So I didn't know if you had a strong opinion on that, Steve, or if you believe there's a right or a wrong way to calculate strike rate.
Yeah, so the right way is to just take the ties and take them out completely. You would never include them. By example, let's say you're betting soccer totals at 3 and you're playing under 3 and you're pushing on half of them, which you wouldn't push on half, but you get the idea. You wouldn't say, hey, you only got 25% of your games right. So you want to take them out completely. The only time that it matters is when you're calculating ROI, return on investment, because obviously you're earning, nothing on that portion of your portfolio. But the 54.1% is what you should be using, not the 52.9. Having said all that, hey, when we're quoting our units, be aware that we're just saying that we're this many games above 500. Now, grades on a spreadsheet, you can go in there and put in the VIG. On teasers, it's minus 120. On our straight bets, it's minus 110. And calculate what the net units won was and put in the VIG.
Exactly correct. Well said. All right, but still, 54.1% is a pretty solid strike rate on our best bets this year. If any of you listened or watched Friday's episode of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast with PFT commenter from Pardon My Take, you know that he loves hearing about my doors and getting the new doors at my house. I love telling you guys that the 3 for free sales event ends this week, February 2nd. Free install, free upgrade, 0% free interest. And if you go to westshorehome.com/Ross, you can get an extra $500 off. So if you've even thought about new windows, if you've thought about new doors, if you've thought, "Ah, man, I'd really like a better shower here. I want to get this fiberglass tub out of here. My wife would love a cool walk-in shower." At least get the free estimate. westshorehome.com/Ross. That's westshorehome.com/Ross. All right, the Super Bowl is set. It is the Eagles and the Chiefs. I've been telling you guys about Smirnoff being an official sponsor of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast all year. So you already know that they're also an official vodka partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59. What I love about Smirnoff is that you can get the world's #1 vodka without breaking the bank. Very important. This feeling is what the good folks over at Smirnoff call Smirnoff Extraordinary. And yes, I can say that way better than the guys in the TV commercial. They've got some awesome items right now dropping, including from Vernon Davis. You got to check it out. Head on over to SmirnoffDrops.com to check out upcoming drops and check out these Smirnoff Extraordinary items. Go quick. They won't last long. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing at sole discretion of the retailer. May vary by state. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. The only thing better than game day predictions are the foods that come with them. Introducing Tums Fantasy Foodball Pool. Brought to you by Tums, America's #1 antacid brand, and DraftKings. Turn football into foodball by building your best game day plate for a shot at winning a share of $40,000 in cash prizes. Join the Tums foodball action during this playoff season's most heartburn-inducing time. Visit DraftKings.com/Tums foodball now through February 9th to enter for free and select your game day plate before the start of each playoff round. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at DraftKings.com/Tums foodball. Don't let heartburn keep you on the sidelines. Try Tums Chewy Bites with a tasty outer shell and soft center for fast relief of heartburn, acid indigestion, and upset stomach. Check out Tums Gummy Bites, featuring a soft and easy-to-chew format for fast relief of occasional heartburn, acid indigestion, sour stomach, and upset stomach. Both available at Amazon, Target, and other major retailers nationwide. Be sure to follow Tums at Tums Official on Instagram and TikTok. All right, Steve, we move forward to the Super Bowl. Now, the line's already out, and a lot of props are already out. I want to start with just an overview of what we should be doing here. It's the Tuesday, the week before the Super Bowl. So we have, 12 days until the Super Bowl. So just kind of map out what you think a reasonable strategy is. Should people, did we already miss the boat? Should we have already bet on the game, the total, the under, and the props? Should we be betting the props as they come out? Is it okay to wait till next week? What do you think is the best way to attack the Super Bowl?
All of the above. So let me get in front of stuff that I think the public is going to want to bet on that I personally like. And I'm going to give 2 wagers here. And these will be best bets. So first wager, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs team total over 24.5. So, and that's available at DraftKings. So think about this. Going for the three-peat. Mahomes is God. All the games are going over in the playoffs. And frankly, in the regular season, this is going to be a very popular bet. And because of that, you're going to pay a tax on that bet. Bold prediction, you're not going to be able to play over 24.5 at a reasonable vig of -110 or -112. So let's hit it right now. Chiefs over 24.5 points.
Got it. How many units?
2 units.
Okay. That makes sense to me. What else?
Super Bowls historically have started slower, and then the second halves have been much higher scoring than the first halves. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've given this to my clients already. Second half total over. Now, I gave my clients 23.5 was available. It's not anymore, but over 24 is fine. In fact, over 24.5 plus money, either one is fine. Second half to go over 2 units.
Got it. And interestingly, they're inside in the dome. I don't think the footing will be an issue like it was when these teams faced off in the Super Bowl a couple years ago either. So that's something interesting to note. Man, I'd be impressed if, it's weird, Steve, because the Eagles defense is really pretty good. And that was the first game that the Chiefs scored over 30 all year. And so now you have the Chiefs going against the number one defense in the league, and you're super confident about the over 24.5.
I am, because the Chiefs don't need to score more than 30. By the way, that's a media narrative. I went back and looked at the Chiefs. They scored 30 twice. So I mean, it's kind of like, let's find the one number they don't go past.
They always do that.
Yeah, I mean, basically Kansas City, if you counted all their games that they put a 4-minute drill in and they ran the clock out and they could have scored, they certainly would have made it into the 30s, multiple times. So I think, not to mention Kelsey is like that beautiful red roadster that you leave, Ross. You leave that in the garage all winter long, but when you need it, you bring it out and you take it for a spin, right? Take it for a Sunday drive. And I mean, Kelsey was a nothing last playoff game, but the first playoff game, he was a monster against Houston. And basically the wide receivers for Kansas City were terrible all year long. Worthy looks good, Brown looks pretty good. So I would say the KC offense, Hunt is running very well. I wanted to ask you, Ross, Pacheco has disappeared. Hunt has gotten the carries. It's been 15 degrees and Hunt is more of a mutter. Might we see more Pacheco on a fast turf or not?
I don't know. First of all, it's Pacheco. And secondly, I don't know. It's a good question because he's been their workhorse in the playoffs the last couple of years. I got to tell you, one of my favorite bets right now, I'm confused by this. When I go to receptions for Travis Kelce, 7+ is minus 109. 6+ is minus 171. Can you explain this to me? It's confusing. What's the over? Oh, there's receptions over under. Receptions over under for Travis Kelce, 6.5. It's a pretty high number, but I just watched Zach Ertz have a bunch against this Eagles defense, and it feels like that's actually the best place to attack the Eagles defense. What do you think about the Travis Kelce over 6.5? I think he's probably done it a few times this year. He's averaged 5.9, so over 6.5 receptions for Travis Kelce, Steve.
I could only look over for catches. If you're going to play Kelce under, I think I'd go yardage. We talked about how slow he looks, and I know he got a big one in the first round of the playoffs against Houston, but I could see Kelce going for 7 or 8 catches for 53 yards. So I would lean under for yardage, over for catches. My only concern would be that, boy, KC, it really looks like they're trying to get Worthy and some of their playmakers more involved in the passing game.
I have to go back and check. Washington must have targeted Ertz. I think he had 11 catches. They must have targeted him 20 times. I mean, they threw the ball to him a ridiculous amount of times in that game. It was it was wild. I think it says something about the corners that the Eagles have, that was where they felt like their best option would be. Do you have any initial thoughts, Steve, on the game itself? Right now, the Chiefs are laying 1.5, and the total's 49.5. Do you have any thoughts on that? Any lean on that?
So this is interesting because I've heard lots of prop specialists, more content providers, saying first decide who wins the game and then base your prop bets based upon that. Well, yeah, magically with $100,000 limits on this game, which I believe is what Circa was at 60,000 yesterday. It's only going up. DraftKings, I'm sure, if you have a clean account, I can only imagine what you could bet on this game. Bottom line is, if you wanted to bet $1 million, you could. All right, and the line's been Chiefs minus 1.5 for the last 24 hours. That's a good line. If it was a bad line, people would be making millions, pounding into that. So assume KC is going to win the game by 1.5 and assume the total should be 49.5 and build your prop portfolio based upon that. Don't think you're suddenly smarter than the entire stock market and can spot a Super Bowl line that's off by 3. Having said that, Super Bowl lines were off by 3 or 4 points back in the 90s. Example, 1997, let me ask you, I'll put you on the spot. Denver Broncos, the dynasty team with Terrell Davis and John Elway, they were playing the Green Bay Packers. What was the spread on that game, Ross?
I bet you that the Packers were laying maybe 9.5. It was probably a big number.
Packers minus 11.5.
Dude, how good is that? That was my senior year of high school.
You're the only person. You're the only person that has predicted that spread to be less than to be above 5, and several people have said the Broncos were favored. And it just goes to show that game actually opened like 13. So
the AFC hadn't won in like 15 years or something crazy.
And the Broncos had gotten crushed in all these Super Bowls, and the narrative was, Green Bay won the last Super Bowl by 14, they'll win it again. So what I'm saying, that game illustrates how much easier it was to win sports betting back in 1997. But now the lines are right. You're not going to see lines that are off.
So you think Kansas City minus 1.5 is the right line?
Yeah, the Eagles are the better team, slightly better team. They have the better stats, and all Kansas City does is find a way to win. And at some point, how do you quantify luck? How do you quantify they always stop the other team by 1 inch, or they get their 2-point conversions and their other team doesn't get the 2-point conversions, or the ball gets dropped at the most leveraged point of the game with the game on the line. It's crazy.
You know what, though? The Bills didn't turn it over, and the Chiefs dropped the ball once. And the Bills still didn't win the game. And they had so many opportunities. I tried to calculate this, Steve. I wrote this article about a month ago for the 33rd team. 17 consecutive one-score games they've now won. And you know how they do those win probability things? The analytic win probability. The Chiefs have a 28% chance to win this game. They're down by 6 in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs are like statistically impossible. I mean,
it's one. It would be 1 in 125,000, right? Because a 20 coin flip in a row would be 1 in a million event. So 1 in 125,000, Ross. Obviously, a little more likely because the Chiefs are more likely to win close games than to lose them. So call it 1 in 100,000.
Why are you saying 17 straight one-score games is 1 in 125,000? Where do you get that number?
If I take 1/2 to the 17th power, it'll be approximately 125,000. 1 over 125,000.
Wow. That is awesome. I can't believe how fast you can do math in your head. That is nuts.
It's what I do. I'm a math geek. I'm an actuary.
I love it. Check him out on social media at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. A lot more Super Bowl bets where these came from next week. Make sure you're subscribed and checking us out. Going to be awesome. And make sure you read them all. Patreon.com/RTmedia in black and white. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.